Erythritol is one of the most popular artificial sweeteners on the market. This paper claims it's associated with a massive increase in heart attacks and strokes. That's a terrifying headline. But we looked a little closer at the financial incentives behind this discovery and found something quietly omitted. The meter starts at zero. Let's begin the audit. We start at the top. Nature Medicine. You don't get published here by accident. It's one of the most rigorously gatekept medical journals in the world, and the authors are careful with their words. They don't claim the sweetener definitely causes strokes, just that there's a strong association. Top-tier venue and measured claims. Exactly right. Their ground rules are solid. Major adverse cardiovascular events. They didn't measure vague things like mild chest pain. They looked for death, heart attacks, and strokes. In medical research, you want outcomes that leave no room for interpretation. You can't fake a heart attack. Hard endpoints and strict registration. No issues here. Let's see how they tracked the patients. Higher incident event risk was observed with higher levels of erythritol. They used an observational cohort design, which is the gold standard for spotting long-term risks in the real world. They also used standard survival math to handle patients who dropped out of the study early, and mapped it out on high-quality charts. The foundation is solid and the math checks out. Some standard trial rules don't apply here. Continuous data are presented as median. Things like randomized group assignments and sealed envelopes are structurally irrelevant when you're just observing what people naturally consume. So, we skip those checks. A whole block of criteria skipped. But right above that, the math trips. Hypertension, 70.4%. That's what this table claims for the US group. But the internal numbers contradict this. But jump to the data on the next page. It lists only 652 patients with hypertension, which is 30%. They accidentally swapped the labels. A sloppy data error, meaning this part only partially checks out. Let's move down to the lab results. P-values were calculated by the two-sided Kruskal-Wallis test. This is actually a mark of excellent statistics. When you only have a few data points, like the 8 people in their pilot study, standard math can easily be fooled into showing false patterns. This non-parametric test doesn't assume the data follows a neat bell curve. They use the right tool for the job, but that doesn't change the fact that an 8-person trial without a sample size calculation is incredibly small. The statistical choices are exactly right, even if the sample size is tiny. Next time the study gets cited in your feed, you'll already know what the data actually says. Subscribe so you stay ahead. Let's go back to page 1. We need to look at the authors themselves. Stanley Hazen, he's the senior author of this study, and that gets uncomfortable when you look at the financial incentives. Stanley Hazen holds patents for cardiovascular diagnostic tests and receives royalties from a major diagnostics company. He profits from discovering new risk markers like this one. He never disclosed this to readers. The independent story is completely broken here. 69 out of 100, and under normal circumstances, that's a passing grade. But this study fell below our minimum threshold for statistical integrity. That triggers an automatic discard. The authors failed their disclosure obligations by hiding a massive financial motive that directly intersects with what they are studying. The science behind the risk? Independent labs have confirmed it holds up, but this specific paper can't be the one you cite to prove it.